All right. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for taking some time here on this beautiful snowy Sunday.
Friday.
Friday.
Yes, it's ready for the weekend.
Is everybody else pretty much there too?
And Dustin said you can leave work after this and go home and start the weekend early after this webinar. You have
That's right.
Dustin's full permission.
Yep, you now have my full permission and written
If,
consent.
if I can interrupt real quick, hey Peter, I met you at SMX with DMA a couple years ago.
Yes, of course I remember. That was a good time down in New York City. You gave me some good advice back then too.
Well, we
Thanks-
shall
thanks,
see.
yeah.
I'm here
Yeah.
for your advice today. So
All perfect.
I'll stop taking over.
We'll catch up after.
Absolutely. So I was going to say we've got a room full of people we know, some we haven't met before. A lot of people interested in the subject today. So thanks everybody for jumping on and joining us. I am Dustin Bailey. I'm our account executive and one of our partners here at Anania Bailey. I manage all of our accounts, and today I am joined by our creative director, Nick Rogacki. He's the real engine behind all of our work, and Peter Anania, our managing partner and our drive behind our agency's tenacity. Today, we're going to be talking about the hype and reality of AI tools for marketing. So we're going to go over a couple of different things, talk about essentially where it's being used right now, where it's going. And then, of course, we're going to talk a little bit about, the ethics behind, what's being used, how it's being used, and all the different concerns that many people are starting to have as we're starting to see these tools be used. So at any point, feel free to throw questions, comments, insights into the chat throughout our spiel here. At the end of every sort of segment and each slide, we are going to open it up to have a little bit more of a dialogue, get everybody's input. We encourage you to turn off your mics and talk to us and let us know sort of what your thoughts are, where your concerns are, as I'm sure there's a bunch of that across the entire spectrum of what we're talking about today. So feel free to jump in when you are ready. So yeah, so essentially, if you haven't heard about us before, we're your creative intuition. We're Anania Bailey, full service marketing agency over in Westbrook. And just to give you a little bit of our spiel, I know you can read it here on the screen, but we believe that to create a great to create great branding, you need to develop great relationships. That's why we've worked hard to become the most trusted agency in Maine. And our creative gets results because we take the time to know your brand and we never shy away from the truth. So when we took a look at today's subject, we really thought about this sort of from a full service perspective, as we do just about anything that we work on. So, we're known for our branding expertise, our video production, our website development, and our advertising campaigns. And we took a look at a lot of the tools today, thinking about how you can use them or how they are a good fit or not a good fit when you're thinking about doing projects in any of these different departments. So without further ado, Peter, go ahead and bring us
Thank
through
you.
some of our AI.
Thanks for that intro, Dustin. And I just encourage you. We'd love to see faces, so feel free to put your cameras on. So we pivoted this webinar a little bit because a lot's happened with AI here recently. And we were originally going to focus on a lot of AI tools, but we pivoted to really talk about OpenAI. And if you go to their website, their mission statement is to make sure that AI benefits all of humanity. Their products is they have ChatGPT, which we're going to be talking a lot about. They have DALL-E, which creates images from prompts using AI. Scours the internet, and you feed it a prompt and it will create an image for you. Also Whisper, which is automatic speak recognition software. So why did we make the pivot? I want to talk about that for a little bit and not talk about all these other tools out there. It's mainly because I'm going to let a couple people in real quick. Sorry about that. With the release of ChatGPT, it was end of November. This was seen as an iPhone moment. We all remember, everyone here on here, I'm sure remembers, the world before what's called the iPhone moment. So this is going to be seen as major disruption in the marketplace and maybe even our personal lives. And by personal lives, maybe people could have AI boyfriends and girlfriends in the future. I kind of wanted to throw that out there as a little bit of a joke, but this really is going to affect us professionally, but also this technology is going to go into our personal lives as well. Secondly, most of the tools out there, they rely on the underlying GP3 technology that OpenAI has. And so we had a video playing here when the slide came on that's telling us it's at capacity now. And I was one of the first users an early adopter of when this came out of signing up. And I tell Dustin I have withdrawals right now because I'm not being able to use it. But it's so popular that the servers could no longer handle the traffic. I mean, that's what they're telling us. They're offering it for free, and every time we use it, it costs them, every prompt we put in there costs them a couple of cents, and across 5 million users, that starts to get really expensive. So going back to the other tools, and I want to hear if people can put in chat, what other tools have you used? And I'm curious, has anyone used Jasper? Please put in the chat. This is a tool that utilizes that underlying GP3 technology through an API. There's some serious drama going on between OpenAI right now and Jasper and other tools that use this API. Because to be honest, ChatGPT makes them completely obsolete in my opinion, as someone who has used these before. And ChatGPT is making, what it's making obsolete is a lot of their big customers, the technology behind their big customers. And in my opinion, some of these tools, they're very cumbersome. ChatGPT, it feels like you're almost working with a colleague, someone who understands your intention, understands your direction. Where the other tools are much more cumbersome, filling in inputs and boxes and choosing one for a blog and one for an email. This is just much more like you're interacting with a coworker. So going back to the drama with Jasper and OpenAI, in October, Jasper received $125 million worth of funding for their technology at a valuation of $1.5 billion. And then seemingly a month later, a technology came out that you could argue could make Jasper obsolete. I'm not necessarily saying that's going to happen, but so this drama turned a little bit personal as OpenAI, they share a Slack channel with Jasper. There's a lot of chatter back and forth. The CEO of Jasper holds a meeting with Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, and says, "What are your plans here? What are you guys doing? You're cannibalizing our business. This is making our AI tool obsolete." And OpenAI replies, "We had no idea this was going to be a technological revolution. We thought this was just a new interface to a technology we all had." So seemingly they did not even know how this technology was going to be seen as an iPhone moment when it was taken out. So just Dustin, I'm gonna in 1 second, this is gonna go back to you, and Dustin's gonna talk a little bit about AI tools that have been behind the scenes that we don't even know about in our everyday lives as marketers. He's gonna talk a little bit about that technology, but just one last thing on this iPhone moment. Since the release of ChatGPT, OpenAI is valued at $29 billion. And Dustin quickly told me when this happened, he's like, Microsoft just said they're gonna, they have $1 billion investment. They're gonna put a $10 billion investment. And I said, oh man, I don't want Microsoft to own a lot of this company. It's gonna become a boring product. But I'm an Apple guy, so I'm kind of kidding. When
Come on,
I say
Xbox.
We do love Xbox. And also just the rate of growth that ChatGPT had. faster than, any other app out there. They had 1 million active users in a matter of days. So really, we're seeing a technological revolution happen right now. So Dustin, with that, I'd like you to, I'd like you to take us through a little bit about some technologies working behind the scenes.
Of course. So, I think when we talk about AI tools, obviously there's a lot of tools that are now available that are sort of using that interface that we're starting to get used to, having sort of the form and discourse and everything around that. But I think one thing that is good for us to remember before we really start this conversation is thinking about like how much machine learning and how much AI has already been behind the scenes, and just knowing that it's already had an impact, and now it's becoming much more of a tool that we can utilize, on an individual basis, and not just sort of the larger machines at work, right? So we all know, of course, that social algorithms are, based on machine learning. Social feeds, if you've ever been in and working around social media, it has a mind of its own, and that shouldn't surprise anybody. But of course, this type of machine learning allows things to go viral, improve outreach. It has a certain way of being able to break the normal barriers of sharing information because of that machine learning aspect behind social algorithms. SEO, of course, when we go to the other side of things, Google and its algorithm as well has been a huge component of the internet for a very long time. And many of the tools that Google uses now, and many of the tools that are used to improve SEO or market, SEM, really focus on learning Google's algorithm, doing keyword research, doing SERP analysis, link valuations, and then of course, your really fine-tuned website and app optimization. And then of course, digital ads, online ads, if anyone has been in the Google ad suite, in the last year and a half, everybody knows that you can't have your traditional Google search ads anymore. They're all responsive search ads. And most of that is sort of generated on optimizing from machine learning. So from the ads themselves to audience segmentation to campaign evaluation and optimization for your dollars, online ads have been using machine learning and AI for many years now. And then of course, there are tools around photo editing. So a lot of visual enhancements, inside and outside, like the Adobe Suite, have been a big, really been a big tool in the last couple of years. Nick, you probably know these a little bit more than I do.
Yeah, I mean, a big part of this stuff is Adobe introduced Adobe Sensei, for those of you that are in the Adobe sort of space, about 4 years ago. And it was greeted to kind of, okay, cool, we've got AI that's powering some interesting things. And then over the last 4 years, it's skyrocketed in use and in complexity. So stuff like, going from being able to easily identify a subject in a photo to being able to, with pinpoint accuracy, identify a subject and their blowing hair in a photo, which is, as anybody who's tried to manipulate stuff like that knows, is very difficult to do. And now you can totally replace you can totally replace skies. You can change photos from day to night or night to day, or even change what time of year photos are, which is incredible when you take a landscape photo and it will automatically change the foliage from summer to fall to even winter and literally remove all the foliage from stuff. And this is all stuff that Adobe's been doing really as a trailing indicator of the capabilities of AI for 4 or 5 years. So, I mean, this stuff has really been everywhere, especially with audio manipulation and Adobe Audition, being able to automatically take a horizontal video and convert it and track your subject matter for vertical video for social. I mean, this is stuff that's been going on for years, kind of in the background, just as really quality of life improvements for designers, editors, illustrators. So anyway, sorry about that. So when we're looking at the AI kind of hype, some of the questions are a little around what will AI sort of not do, right? Because a lot of the conversation that I think is being had right now is around either how AI is already working or the potential for AI. And we wanted to take a quick moment to talk a little bit about like the AI hype and what you shouldn't expect. We're obviously seeing a lot of different movement in copywriting. It's partially because it's kind of low-hanging fruit and easy to address, a lot easier than some of the visual stuff that we're talking about. And there's a good reason for that. The average blog post is 12,600 or 12,069 words long. Takes about 4 hours to write something like that. Content writing is an area where AI really excels because it's highly structured compared to some of the more creative, heavy fields that we deal with. Apparently, I get a fun drum roll right in the middle of it. AI uses natural language processing for those of you who are curious about some of the guts of it, for instance. And that allows you to extract topics and measure their importance in a context automatically, which saves a lot of time. And then AI can also go ahead and identify and recommend keywords and competition ranking. So all of that stuff serves to really underscore some of the foundational assumptions we make when we decide that we're going to write content or write blogs. But many people are using AI because they don't want the hassle or time of actually writing blog posts. And that's a terrible strategy for what AI can actually do right now. And it's not really going to yield any results. And that's because when we're talking about creativity and innovation, we are still much better than AI when it comes to producing original content. If your company is trying to rely intuitively on AI to put together content and write that content for human consumption, as opposed to say just pure SEO results, you're going to end up lagging behind and not being able to really react to other competition because you're not going to be keeping up with the zeitgeist, and you're really going to suffer, I think, to produce original content. Another thing AI isn't doing well, and frankly, most human beings aren't doing right now, is fact checking. But because AI isn't fact checking and can't really discern between truth and fiction, over reliance on AI for copy and content creation is really a recipe for like some disasters, public facing disasters, just a total lack of consistency across your brand voice. And it also makes the job of, I think essentially AI makes the job of content writers easier because it gives you kind of that initial draft, but it's not going to give you a complete piece. And when we think about how relevant copywriters are going to be, I think the answer is they're going to continue to be relevant for a long time. But another thing that we've been seeing a lot is kind of graphic designer and illustration stuff. AI has been able to build some simple branded ads, for instance, right? There's not like kind of an en masse service for AI built full branding yet. You've got AI kind of writing copy right now. But AI can easily draw from established templates, factor in branding fonts and colors, and deliver digital and print ads. You're seeing this happen a lot on Adobe Express right now, where you can pull in templates that you like in the Adobe program, automatically kind of wallpaper with your new brand and call it a day. But if you want to, draw on something more than just pools of samples and creative work, AI really can't be creative, right? Because it's just creating the illusion of creativity by drawing on a huge database of other creative work and basically just manufacturing an approximation of creative styles, right? It feels creative because it looks creative, but it's just basically a bit of theft right now, right? Which we can talk about a little bit later. But if you're looking to try to disrupt the status quo or create design that really stands apart from others in your industry, you're still going to need a real designer to do that. Really, AI just brings you a current design and sort of hews to the status quo, which also means a lot of design that AI produces is a trailing indicator of what is popular, right? So AI is basically going to reflect what people are looking for or responding to 3 to 6 months ago. It's not really able to keep up to the changing sort of zeitgeist. And then another thing here is really it can't do complex thinking. So, when we're talking about marketing strategy, building material, building marketing collateral, trying to make sure that you've got kind of a whole of brand design, you're still going to need to drive strategy and execution. AI can help inform some of that information, but we still need to kind of make those choices. And again, that's part of the reason because AI can't read the room or ensure accuracy. It can't edit content. It doesn't compensate for bias, which we'll talk about in a bit. It doesn't really do a wonderful job of speaking in our voice, so I think that'll change very rapidly. But it really can't monitor kind of inaccuracies of humans. So for example, email marketing campaigns need to be checked for kind of the human factor of products and personalization that AI just can't do. And the last thing I just want to say, though, I feel like this crowd is pretty smart. I can't help anytime we talk about AI to raise the fact that it won't enslave humanity. Scientists have seen Terminator. We've seen The Matrix. Skynet's not going to happen. Hell will continue to open the pod bay doors. And sometimes there's just a fundamental concept about what AI does and how it works. And the idea that as AI becomes more competent, AI will start to think like humans and maybe do something human, like, I don't know, mass robot genocide. But that's a misunderstanding of how AI really functions, right? Because what AI is really doing here is it's just being programmed to problem solve, to come up with solutions and to solve the issues that we programmed it to solve, right? So when a Tesla drives, it's not trying to impress its girlfriend. It's not trying to tailgate a guy in front of them for fun. It's just driving because it's been programmed to drive, right? And as AI becomes more competent, it's not going to suddenly develop more human instincts to do potentially more dangerous human things, which is why I think AI is both limited in being able to really kind of breach that creative ceiling. And also part of the reasons why, thankfully, we won't have to worry about, an AI apocalypse anytime soon either. Anyway, that's a very long breakdown of what I don't think AI can do. But I'm looking forward to people telling me all the reasons why they think I'm wrong.
Yeah, and if anyone wants to chime in, we have a couple minutes here. I have no idea what that drum roll was, guys. I don't know if it's a Canva thing or if it was a Zoom thing I did, but
AI fighting back. It's probably
I was
AI
gonna say,
fighting back.
we did.
It's
We
already
did
listening
produce
to us.
this. All the images on this webinar are from Dolly. So I don't know if it is they are fighting back. I can't promise there's not going to be another one. I've never seen that before. But if anyone has anything real quick, unmute yourselves and jump in. The next topic we're going to go over, I know there's going to be a lot of people who want to jump in on.
Yeah, I'd mostly be curious how people are using kind of AI right now. And,
Yeah,
and
that's
like
that's
how
what I'm
deep into
curious
their
about.
workflows are they using it? Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we should open it up after this slide. So if you do want to talk about any tools, I know Jared and I saw Luke and Steven, and I think I saw Rebecca say some tools they were using. So would love to have some of you talk a little bit with giving your experiences. So I think Nick and we have slightly different takes on this technology. He comes at it from the creative end. I come at it from the entrepreneurial side a little bit more. So I think you'll see difference of opinion, maybe more so when we talk about the ethics. But I'm super excited about this technology because the task I don't love that Nick is very talented at is writing, and my job requires a lot of it. And it's not necessarily the writing that Nick and the team does, where we have to think about brand messaging and brand consistency and engaging copy for websites and maximizing for conversions and all that sort of thing. It's for proposals and sales communication. And these tools just really help with this. It allows me to create kind of a first pass of content. I can then hand over to Nick and the team and say, hey, I did this. Can you guys turn this into a blog? And also it will help me just sometimes craft an email that then I can also customize myself. I've got 3 little ones at home. Sometimes they keep me up at night. So, 3 o'clock on a Thursday, I'm kind of burnt out to send to write and send stuff. So sometimes it can be great, just a first pass that you go in and quickly customize when you are feeling a little bit lazy, almost like a spell check. So for us and our clients, who are very concerned about brand consistency and their brand image and their messaging, these tools will never be used without a copywriter. If we ever were to use these tools in our workflow, a copywriter or a creative director looking over it, but that's not everyone, right? And I know we have some solo entrepreneurs on this webinar, but there's also small nonprofits with volunteer boards. and they're entrepreneurs with small budgets. And an example I want to put on here is like a handyman who just needs a website. Doesn't necessarily need to pay, our team stacked with creative talent to get a website out and promote their service. They may be able to use this tool without anything but reviewing what it spits out, and be able to build copy for brochures and websites, and sales communication, and even Google Ads. So there's a spectrum out there from the solo entrepreneurs, the nonprofits run by volunteers, all the way up to the national brands that really care about brand consistency and their brand image, and really scrutinize their brand. So depending on where you are on that spectrum is how much you can use this tool without someone proofing it and improving upon it. How useful this tool is going to be is where you are on that spectrum. So I broke down copywriting into sales, digital marketing, and web. I think for sales, like I said, when a Thursday at 3 p.m. and you're feeling a little lazy and burnt out, it can help you generate a first pass of an email to a prospect. Within digital marketing, I think we're going to see a lot of direct response marketers out there, a lot of solo entrepreneurs who are doing direct to consumer e-commerce. They're going to be using these tools to write their funnels, to write their nurturing campaigns, to write their social media posts. They're going to be heavily utilizing tools like this, and can use this tool without really a whole lot of edits currently right now. And then back to the local handyman example, I think a lot of people, smaller entrepreneurs, solo entrepreneurs, are going to be able to use this tool to even produce website content as well. So replacing stock images, this technology right now, it has the ability to replace simple stock images. It certainly has a long way to go. And I know Stephen in chat alluded to another tool called Midjourney, and when it comes to designing, how there's a long way to go. But it's not going to be able to produce like a complex photo. Like if you had a flooring company as a customer and you're trying to get a stock photo of a family at game night in the living room, showing like the nice hardwood floor and the nice house that the family's in, you're not going to get that. Maybe you could produce something like that, but there's going to be missing fingers on the individuals. It's parts of it might look smudged, as if when you take a photo with a panoramic on an iPhone, how when you zoom in, there's some like smudges from where you move too fast. For more complex photos, it certainly happens. But if you're writing a white paper and you just need an illustrative photo of an avocado, this technology can get you that right now. So, we said that we use this tool to make these images for this webinar. So very simple stock images right now, these tools can use. And then quickly, ideation and brainstorming. Especially for copywriters, if you just want to brainstorm back and forth, see what the tool does versus what you would do, get different versions of copy. And even on the design side, like Stephen and Jared said with Midjourney, just to kind of ideate, brainstorm back and forth, see what the tool produces. It can be pretty good for that. And then research, this is an area where I don't think it's at now, because Nick said, there's some serious fact checking possibilities here and inconsistencies with the data that can go out. But it can do a tool to do like preliminary research, like where you might want to dig in further, what resources might spit out that you want to go investigate further and fact check yourself. So in the short-term future, I think we're going to see it more and more as a research tool. I think we're going to see Google and Bing turn their search engines to be more like this ChatGPT service. It's going to be much more interactive, almost more human-like, versus just typing out a search query and seeing what spits out in the format of what Google has. So I want to open it up to everyone and hear their experiences. So please jump in if you have any. But one thing for the future, and I think one area where this is going to help, that's going to make a lot of us as marketers happy, because sometimes we get stuck doing this, and it's customer service. Just by the nature of what we do, especially in-house folks. We're managing social media pages. We're involved in online listings where questions are answered. These tools are going to be able to take a lot of the heavy lifting that comes with customer service for brands. Instead of sending someone to an FAQ, it's going to be much more human-like interaction, and see in the future this becoming more and more prevalent and something that takes the lift off of marketing teams, because we all know sometimes, especially in-house, this gets put on the marketing team, some of this customer service type stuff. So with that, I'd like to open it up. I know Luke, you have some experience. I'd love to hear what you have to say, or Jared, or Stephen, or Rebecca. Anyone who's used these tools, what you've used them for, and what your experience has been.
Yeah, hey, how's it going, Peter?
Hey, Luke.
I've only had the chance to dabble in it a few times, and I used ChatGPT and Dolly. I tried my hand with Dolly and logo design, and it blew my mind, the prompts I was able to throw at it and the results that I got. If it could export vector art, it's game over, right? So that's next. But ChatGPT was really fascinating. I had an idea for an article that I wanted to write, and I thought, well, why not try prompting it for some nuggets that I could then reformat into an article. And it took what would be normally a day and a half process, write it, sit on it, review it the next day, make edits, and it shaved it down to like an hour and a half. And I got a piece out that I was happy with. The tip of the iceberg, right? I had a coworker come in the other day. He used it to write a script for Excel to process data that he wanted to spit out some reports for.
Oh,
and
wow.
He told it what he wanted it to do. It gave him the script. He put it in. There were a few errors being thrown. He put what the errors were back into ChatGPT, and it told him how to fix it. So
Wow.
again, a week it would have taken him to create those reports and do the work manually, and he shaved it down to a couple of hours. So from a time-saving standpoint, as a helper, this is really gonna change the game. I would spend a week in it just getting familiar with it. There's so much that I think it could do, and it's just a matter of finding that time, right, to give yourself more time. So just scratching the surface, but it's incredibly powerful. And from a content creation standpoint, I think it's gonna change everything.
And are you still able to access it, or are you kicked out too?
I have not tried today. I think I've logged in like 4 times successfully, and I've tried maybe another half dozen and not been able to get in. But I will tell you, to that point, I am ready to pay. Right?
I'm ready to pay too.
I bought Dolly credits. I burned through the 15 free credits, and then I saw I got a month right to get to the next. I'm like, nope, I'm buying it. So I'm ready to pay for this, even if it's beta, whatever. I want to jump the line.
Can you tell everyone what prompts, walk us through the prompts you put in for the blog post, and maybe kind of like the drafts that spit out, how you had to massage that to something you were happy with, and then if you edited after or not?
Yeah. So the first time I used it to create an article, well, let me back up. I learned about it from TikTok, and I've been doing a lot of educational stuff on TikTok. If you know where to look, all the advice you need to do this stuff is there. People are literally telling you how to do it step by step. So I was like, oh, that sounds pretty cool. Let me try this. And I didn't do it in the way that is recommended. Like, you can tell it to act as a screenwriter, act as a whatever, and you'll get more definition for what you're looking for. I literally just said, because I wanted to do an article on menu costing and updating menu pricing for the new year for restaurants. So I said, what should restaurants be focused on when it comes to menu pricing? And it spit out an answer. And then I said, okay, well, what are some of the challenges that restaurants run into when doing menu pricing? And it spit out an answer. And I said, what are some of the biggest factors to address when you're doing menu pricing in terms of ingredients? And it spit out answers. And I'm sure I could have taken that and said, okay, now break that into an article or break those into bullet points. But I just copied those short answers and then, wrote what I wanted from there and made it sound a little bit more human. But that was my very first attempt using it. I was just prompting it with a few questions, and it was spitting out all kinds of advice and information. I will say that if you prompt it with certain questions, it will preface it by saying, I'm only a chat language dialogue and I can't do those things. And then it gives you a great answer. And you're like, yeah, don't be so modest there, ChatGPT. You did a good job. So same for Dolly, right? I wanted to experiment with the logos and I just said, show me a human being with glowing gold fibers in a Da Vinci style, right? And it'll spit this out. And then you can change it to say like a painting or as a 3D model. And it varies it. And it's just absolutely fascinating.
So it sounds like Chat GPT for you and if people don't know, Luke is a CMO at Dennis Paper and Food Service. For you, this sounds like it's number one, it's going to help you put up way more content if you can get access to the tool. But number two, it just saved you time, maybe a first draft. It almost gave you sort of like a colleague or a junior level employee to spit something out that then you had to improve to make sure it was in your brand voice and was consistent with your, who you are as a brand. Exactly.
It shaved off the time that I would normally do to either, write something from a cold start, and you keep coming back, you get your draft for it. It cut out creating drafts, right? Because it cut out doing research. If I wanted, it was a very, very short article, I would probably either spend more time in ChatGPT prompting it or provide some supplemental research, like I'd paste in and have it change things. You don't want to cross that boundary where you're copying somebody else's work or just Googling things to get ideas. So I kind of liked that it was just me and the ChatGPT coming up with the stuff together. Case in point, right? I'm actually getting ready to publish a podcast and I was interviewing somebody and I gave it an article that I had written on the topic and I said, turn this article into interview questions for a podcast, and it spit out 10 questions. And I just sat there and read a variation of those questions to the person, knowing that it was exactly the content that I wanted to share. So from a time-saving standpoint, hell yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Sounds like it's going to allow, Luke puts out a lot of content. Sounds like it's going to enable you to put out a lot more content. One thing, another use case is when Luke goes and gives a presentation with, Hospitality Maine, he can then take all his notes for that presentation, just give them to Chat GPT, and it could spit out a blog post similarly to what you did, but maybe less back and forth. That's another good use case for that.
Thank you for the reminder there. I'm doing a talk in Nashville at the end of the month, and I've got my slide decks, and there's a ton of writing in there. So I'm going to use that and give some takeaways to the audience.
That'd be a great thing to do if you can get into it. If you can get into the tool.
Yeah, Rebecca, you have your hand up. What's up?
Yeah. So I've really been exploring this from a couple of different areas. I've spent time in ChatGPT and also in the playground. I'm super excited that the API for ChatGPT has been released for ChatGPT 3. I think I've got some good vision for business ideas that can utilize different, go in and sort of prompt into ChatGPT. So I'm super excited about that. I'm diving into a little bit more from, as you know, I work with the Maine PR Council, and I'm diving into it a little bit more in terms of some of the PR, kind of the like you mentioned earlier, the ethics issues, the what is it, but how can it help, but how can it also be concerned? What do marketing, looking at kind of marketing agency owners and PR agency owners need to be thinking about this as well. In fact, we're doing a webinar for the Maine PR Council on this on February 24th. So super excited about it.
Yeah.
And looking at a lot of the tools. I'm really excited with some of the integrations. Zapier seems to have some really cool workflow capability, and then able to prompt and query right into ChatGPT. I just heard that Canvas actually now has integration into ChatGPT. So if you're looking for ideas, a social media marketing person is creating a post and they're looking for inspiration and ideas right within Canva, they can click on, that and actually get some information back. So it's something that we as marketers and PR folks, we need to be aware of this, and we need to really understand the implications, because it's a part of our tool set now. But it's going to be a much bigger part of our tool set very, very quickly with the way this is just rapidly expanding. So I'm super excited about it, but I've really been diving in, and I'll be putting together a more comprehensive list of AI tools and so forth, especially in the PR arena.
Oh, share those for
Yeah.
us. And
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And where can people find out more about that webinar?
I'll send you a link to it. I don't have the description up yet. So I'll send you a link to it.
Okay.
And then if you want to share it, it'll be with the Maine PR Council. So that's meprcouncil.org. But I don't have that particular event up listed yet, but it should be within the next few days. But super excited to dive into this, and it's exciting and it's mind-blowing. And I think something you touched on earlier is really understanding the prompting, the fact that the more specific you get with it, the more specific it comes back with information. It's pretty amazing when you start doing that back and forth with it, and you tighten up your criteria
Yeah.
and your question, but you can really tell it, you can even teach it, let me upload you a piece of my original writing, and I want you to write this next thing in my tone.
Yeah.
You can tell it to, be different types of, be snarky, be relatable, whatever. You can really give it some incredible guidance. I've really just been enjoying that, but it also has helped give inspiration when, oh God, I need some social media headlines for this particular topic or this particular thing. It just pumps out these wonderful ideas that then you can kind of expand upon from there. But I definitely encourage people not to cut and paste. There are already AI detectors. And then if there's also ways where you can simply have it re-summarize, and then that seems to be beating the detectors. But this thing is just unfolding so fast. It's just very exciting.
That's great. And Dustin's telling me that some of what you're talking about relates to our next slide, so I should move it. But one thing you brought up is that made me kind of think of Luke's is, Luke said the AI was like spitting out paragraphs. So he could have collected those paragraphs and then put it back to ChatGPT and said, can you kind of take this home, bring this all together, combine this all.
Summarize into 300 words.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you're saying that you mentioned your mind's kind of racing with the possibilities for use with AIs, and you said you're thinking about maybe possibly doing
I'm
something
looking at a possible kind of a web front end where gathering information, doing an inspection of something, getting all the information, and then as part of the report output, being able to go to AI and be able to do some good queries about the uniqueness and the value, and being able to see whether it's able to analyze this, what would be technical data, and be able to provide some interesting insight and analysis. I'm looking forward to kind of getting involved in that.
Yeah.
But I'm seeing, again, on TikTok, I'm seeing people write small books and then go up, create the images on AI, put it together, sell them on Amazon. I'm seeing all kinds of really interesting side hustles and businesses that are using some of this. I think that will temper down pretty soon, especially as they start ramping up with payments. But I've really seen a lot of interesting business ideas. So I'm looking forward to spending some time figuring out how to connect the web front end and do some of the queries through the API. So,
because I only bring that up because one idea I had, and if I was 10 years younger, I might have the energy to try this as a startup. But as a branding agency, for us, what's important is the consistency and the tone. So if someone could sort of do an API that allows the branding agency to then go in and really customize, put inputs that have to do with the brand, so that the things that the AI spits out are very consistent. I think that would be something that would be very useful.
it's a great idea
Yeah.
because it's very good at
And-
learning and then utilizing that information.
And a lot of agencies already have the tools built for that kind of stuff too. I mean, we build brand dictionaries for every one of the clients that we either write consistently for or do rebrands for. And right there, you've got all the rules about what language to be careful of, or when you reference gender or race or ethnicity in a blog, and when you don't, and even how you write pounds. You know what I mean? Like and include measurements. So you really already have kind of a series of prompts and rules for a lot of these. I think that's a thing that's like probably, a subscription service in a year and a half away from seeing in a more full way. Yeah. We've been talking a lot about, we've been kind of referencing some ethical stuff kind of in this conversation back and forth. And that's what our last slide is here. And we can keep chatting about it afterwards. So I'll try to run through this quickly, but there are a lot of obviously conversations around kind of the ethical considerations here. And I think some of them are a little overblown. I think some of them will be adjusted. I think my general theme is like, it'll be okay, right? When we talk about kind of the ethics of this, but kind of the first one that's been popping up a lot is just really kind of ripping off other people's work. It's a lot of stuff we've heard, especially since AI profile pictures became kind of an overnight sensation on social media, and everybody started to post all of the oil paintings that AI did of them as astronauts or medieval warriors. And, since AI isn't coming up with images and styles on its own, it's essentially copying other artist styles and repurposing them for new subject matter. It's definitely a little problematic, right? The AI also, as Peter mentioned, isn't super precise. You get some wonky eyes here and there. I think that'll be resolved pretty quickly. I think you're going to have kind of pitch perfect illustrations coming from AI probably within the next like 18 to 24 months. But one thing that has been interesting when you see some of these artists, some of these AI drawings, is sometimes you're seeing the signature of the artist in the AI drawing of the person. So a lot of these portraits, for instance, that we're doing they do the portrait and you'd see some of the branding of the original artist whose style they used for it, right? It kind of like indicates a little bit just how sort of sloppy it is when we're talking about that stuff. To Luke's point earlier, using it as a tool to, kind of go back and forth and ideate with really makes a lot of sense. But if you're trying to use it as a direct sort of tool to produce content right now, it's largely forgeries. I mean, that's largely what we're dealing with here is variations of different kinds of forgeries happening. A technology that I think is going to kind of mitigate that a little bit, and I hate to be the guy who brings up like blockchain technology because it just feels so sketchy, but the inherent technology behind blockchain that has made it so popular and maybe a bit of a snake oil sales for some people is that the blockchain technology, particularly the stuff that you see in NFTs, can be used to protect and track original art. And that does a lot of different things, but in relation to AI, it can potentially allow artists to track their styles and the use of their art, even the AIs that are sampling their art, and then demand royalties from the companies whose AI are sampling their art. And that's not something that's like going to take 5 years to get to. That's something that people are developing right now because those technologies exist, and it really just requires sort of tying those two things together. But I think that's one way that you'll probably see that being resolved a little bit. And a more simple one, I think, around the ripping people's work off is, I think very soon you're going to see digital art evolving to require artists to opt into AI sampling a little bit like when we opt into cookies on websites right now. And I think you're going to start to see platforms, particularly those that depend on artists, like Adobe Stock or Getty Images, that require artists to submit their work to go ahead and allow them to check or uncheck, or even give them very small amounts of money every time an AI samples their art for work. So I suspect you're going to see a response to that happen pretty quickly because there's been such a very public conversation around this. Replacing the workforce, I don't buy this argument quite as much. I think, you might see some of the less talented people, folks who claim to be copywriters that aren't great writers or terribly original or terribly fast or terribly efficient. I think you might see some of those people fall by the wayside and maybe move on to a career that's more in line with the skill sets that they have or don't. But automation didn't destroy the American workforce. You know what I mean? We adapted to having machines build cars instead of having people build cars. And, we're going to adapt here too, right? It's just making some parts of our lives easier, but it doesn't mean that we don't have anything productive to offer. And I think the explanation that both Luke and Rebecca had a little bit about how you guys are working with AI and utilizing it doesn't suggest that all of a sudden you are irrelevant in the workforce. Or even that your employees and some of the people who work for you are irrelevant, but rather that you're just able to ideate a little bit faster, connect the dots a little faster, work a little bit better. I think, go on.
Oh, I was just going to say, I just have a funny analogy. I think when you think about it, do you remember when you were studying for school and you weren't allowed to bring a calculator to school, right? Now
Exactly.
it's kind of an essential tool in the toolbox. And that's where I think we have to kind of get over this fear of, especially in universities, students are going to use this. And I'm watching already unfold the professors that are starting to implement it rather than resist it. It's really neat to watch this happen. But I think it's something that where this AI capability is going to be built into a whole realm of tools we use on a daily basis. I think it's something that we really have to embrace and, carry that calculator now. You're not afraid to carry that to class, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, to really get bleak about it for a moment, like I think the real worst case scenario that we're talking about isn't AI eliminates the need for writers and designers and illustrators and marketers. I think that what happens is AI becomes becomes a product that's only available through 2 or 3 main companies. Those companies are then able to determine what the market is on everything. So we all end up paying $20, $30, $40 a month fees to try to access these things. And then they are the ones who are determining what the ethics are around this technology instead of us, because they're able to kind of rapidly get that. You know what I mean? It's the kind of the Microsoft, Apple, Android issue at hand, right? So I think the real question is just how quickly are we going to see this get bought up? People are talking about deception and manipulation. I want to give a quick word to that because audio manipulation, AI-assisted Photoshop deep fakes are all really becoming commonplace. I can actually do a pretty convincing deep fake of Peter if I wanted to pretty quickly. I haven't done that. I haven't done that yet because I haven't needed to blackmail him for a raise yet. But this is stuff that's like sophisticated but widely available. And I think a lot of people are fearful of it because they don't necessarily understand that technology, our ability to recognize technology is faster than technology is at fooling us. There were a lot of conversations. I mean, this comes with every kind of new step that we have in technology. Radio broadcasts, auto-tune, when all of a sudden everyone was paranoid that nobody can sing anymore because auto-tune makes everybody sing. CGI, Photoshop, all those I think have raised those questions. And rightfully so. I mean, a good example is the first cover of Autobahn that was ever done, right? The bird watching magazine that was I think published in like 1906 was actually a photo of 2 taxidermied birds that the photographer took a picture of and then just told everybody they were live birds. And you got this crazy close picture of these very rare birds, right? Like people are always trying to fake this stuff all the time, but we catch up to it really quickly and we're able to spot forgeries really fast. There's a whole separate community on Instagram and TikTok that all they do is just poke at the Kardashians when they have a bad Photoshop job of their bodies or hair, right? I mean, that's because we're getting really good at identifying this stuff. And I think that likewise, when you're talking about AI as a tool to kind of think and ideate, it's incredibly useful. But if we're talking about AI as a means of kind of deception or manipulation, we're going to kind of rapidly be able to recognize when a robot has done the work. We'll be able to rapidly tell the difference. And I think in that same way, it's a little bit like the difference between having clothing that's manufactured en masse Old Navy style in China versus getting a nice tailored suit for a wedding, right? Like tailors still have jobs. People still want custom bespoke stuff done, right? Because it's indicative not only of wealth, of status, but it's also indicative of like, what do you need to apply it for? And what's the use and how do you need to appear? And so I don't think that even in an age where you're seeing graphic design, illustration, poetry being done by AI, means that these things aren't going to really become an issue. 2 things that are 100% legit that will probably not be solved in the next 5, 10, 15 years are biases. And we put body images here because it's been a thing that's popped up a lot. The fact that AI, when an AI artist goes ahead and decides to do maybe an image of Dustin, all of a sudden Dustin is bulky with big biceps and hair blowing gently in the breeze. Or maybe Rebecca, all of a sudden you've got that beach bod you've been working hard for years, suddenly appears in that AI work, right? I think that's just reflective of AI doing largely what we've been doing in marketing and ad trends for the last 150, 200 years, is just setting unrealistic standards that are really influenced by influencers and what public seems to click on. And we're just kind of feeding our own monster there, right? And so you're just seeing AI largely producing those things that AI thinks we want to see. And I don't think that's going to change. I don't think questions around body image is something that AI will fix or solve. Those are things that really need to be addressed societally. And that's, I think, similarly to bias in AI, which I want to take just one more second to talk about, because biases in AI is really an interesting case. Because when Luke, when you were talking about writing something, right, or having it bring up some different resources around potentially design, how something might look, how something might appeal to, you know, to your audience, like, if the AI that you're dealing with is inherently, for better or worse, let's say white middle class AI, because the people who built it are thinking through a very particular lens, maybe even unaware of their bias, right? Or they're sampling a particular data set or pool of stuff. They are sampling something that is inherently biased. And getting around that creator bias to some level is going to be very, very difficult to do. You know, I think it's really telling that AI essentially is holding up a mirror to our society and reflecting back the values that we have. But what we're seeing right now, and have seen in technology for a long time, is AI having a problem creating or reproducing images of people of color. Writing about queer or gender nonconformity, I think that you should challenge your AI just for fun and try to get it to start writing about some things that maybe be about fringe, you know, things on the fringe or minority communities. And you're going to find it start to kind of smoke and whir and conk out a little bit. Particularly when you will try to have it introduce slang or common pop culture stuff. You know, that stuff's going to spiral out too. And that's something that really needs to just broadly be addressed in the industry and by the creators over time. And I think it's something that we have a responsibility to think about as users of AI, to how we can monitor or adapt or respond to that bias that we're inherently getting here. And that's been a problem that we still have in a lot of places. There are, you know, some people will use specific camera bodies and specific sensors because they can take photos of Black people better than others, because we still have problems with camera now. Top of the line stuff that's coming out that photographs Black as blue. You know what I mean? That a very dark person appears blue in many of the photos we take. And that's, again, indicative of a lot of the technologies that we have just having biases. And we just need to be aware of that as we continue to embrace AI. So I'll get off that particular bias soapbox, but it's definitely something to think about for the next, you know, several years as this technology evolves.
Great. Yeah, all very important things to be thinking about.
Indeed.
We're at the top of the hour here.
Yes. So thanks everybody for jumping on, bringing some of your own experience and insights, and having this conversation with us, you know, about the hype and reality of AI tools. This is going to be probably something that we continue to monitor to see how it goes, see what kind of tools are going to be available in the future. And hopefully ChatGPT allows us to use a little bit more if we can actually get into it. So we're, you know, as always, we're always available for continuing the conversation that we have here in our nice little webinars. Here's my email and my Calendly link. So if you ever want to continue the conversation, grab a coffee or just simply talk about the subject matter or what's going to be coming up next, feel free to reach out anytime. And Peter and Nick, thank you for joining us today.